So we can actually step out of that here into that alertness of presence where your life situation subsides. Don't worry, you can remember it when you have to. But it subsides, you don't carry it as a burden anymore, which is the burden of the self, as it's traditionally called in spiritual teachings. You no longer carry with you the burden of the self. That subsides, and that which arises is something of a very different frequency, vibrational frequency, so to speak. It is as if where there was the self, something else has arisen, and it is very hard to describe in words, and but I'm using words because as I speak, you recognize it, because if you had not already been able to experience this for yourself, you wouldn't be here, except maybe one or two who came here by mistake. But there's still hope for you because you're in this place. And it's quite possible that you will get it here. You suddenly go, ah, for example, now, oh. And you suddenly realize, I don't have to remember who I am and what my problems are to be alive. And so you walk through nature as that field of aware presence, where the barrier between you and that which you're perceiving dissolves. And there's simply a continuum of whatever it is you're perceiving, the nature around you, and the consciousness through which it is being perceived. They come together. And that is why I sometimes say that what we call nature here, when you bring that awareness to it, it awakens to its own sacredness through that awareness that arises where there was a person, but there's now a presence. And because ultimately all is connected, and even more deeply all is one, there's not that barrier between there's me and there's the rest of the world. No, you are the universe. You're not, as I sometimes say, you're not in the universe. This is the mismatch between me and the universe. You are the totality. You are whatever you experience, the universe is experiencing. If you are in joy, the universe is in joy. So when you look at nature, comes to a self-realization that wouldn't have been there without your so-called your presence. And that's a wonderful thing to know, that that's really is you begin to see the oneness with you and that, and the oneness when you become, which is not there the moment you conceptualize and impose labels on things, that creates a barrier. When you let go of that, there's that continuum, and there's that sense of oneness with that which you are perceiving, and ultimately, in a deeper sense, that oneness is love. Not in the conventional sense, not the sticky love that just... but it's the recognition of oneness. And so this is the use nature so that to become still and present as you walk through it and perceive with all your senses, and then you're aware of not only that which arises in your sensory perception, but even more fundamentally, you are aware of yourself as the underlying presence without which all this wouldn't even be there. The light needs to be there, the light of consciousness. It all arises in the light of consciousness. You are that light. And that light is not your possession. It comes through you. These are not individual lights. Your life is not yours. You don't have a life. Has become one of my favorite sayings. You don't have a life. You are life. I don't have a life. It's an absurd error to say my life, because this is what thought, which then becomes language, becomes words, what it does to reality. It creates misperceptions. So, I mean, it seems so natural. You say my life. Everybody says it, and I say it sometimes, and I say sometimes your life, but I don't believe in it. It's just a conventional way of speaking. But most people actually believe in it. They believe that they actually have a life, and this is my life. I need to think about my life now. So you've separated yourself. You said, this is me and there's my life. That's strange. And then, of course, the fear comes, what am I going to do with my life? I could lose my life. Okay, you cannot have a life because you are life, an expression of the one life, a temporary expression in this form of the one timeless life. So you don't have a life, because then it means there's life and you. But who are you without life? So all that falls away here, and you are where there was a person, there's now the arising presence. And so this frees you of your past. Not that you need to forget it. You can, of course, remember it, but you're no longer based in it. The past is no longer the basis for your sense of who you are. And that's an enormous liberation. When your personal past to you is only a collection of memories, fine, but no longer the basis for your sense of self. And that's an enormous liberation, because it's so limiting to use your past. It's, even all that is all wrong. That whatever you say is, the moment you open your mouth, the German poet Goethe said somewhere in a poem, the moment you begin to speak, you are in error. So that freedom comes in. That's just the most wonderful thing. Of course, you could do it anywhere. It's just a bit more helpful to be here in this environment, so that you can enter that presence and be supported by this environment here. Of course, you could go to the shopping mall in LA, or you could go to Piccadilly Circus in London, or wherever, and you could, of course, be present there in actually the same way. But before you go there, do it here first. It's easier, so that you get rooted, and then you take it into other places that in themselves might not look conducive to presence, but actually then the miracle is, I will be talking about that one of these days. The miracle is, of course, then that you bring that into the world, that which has arisen, or has not, it's probably arisen in you already, but deepened here. Then you're able to embody it, embody the presence in the rest of your life. So, but we'll be talking about that. Nature. So use that. has become the presence. Then you have another interaction that you have in this retreat environment is people. You meet lots of people, new people, and that's very enjoyable too, talking to new people. And when you interact with other people, see if you can, and again this is very hard to speak about, but I can only point to it. As you speak and listen to someone, maybe you've just met them or you're sitting in the dining hall, of course there is the usual in which the usual patterns in which the mind interacts with others will probably start coming in. And perhaps when somebody mentions your pet grievance or the political party that you dislike so much, not mentioning any names, and somebody mentions, and this was then the mind starts coming in. I'll tell you what I think and what this is really like. Or some spiritual thing, beware of being taken over again, as probably you might occasionally experience that in your life, being taken over by the mind. You can observe it. If you prefer not to interact with people, you can perhaps put a little label on and say, "Don't speak to me." And then you can sit in a dining hall and feel superior and just watch everybody and see how they interact and how they get taken over, perhaps by their mind. And so you can watch. But that's now I dare you to actually interact and then stay conscious in that interaction rather than as a passive watcher. It's easier when you say, okay, I'm just the Buddha. So when you interact with another, again here, don't completely lose stillness. Have some stillness in you, which I sometimes call spaciousness. Have some stillness in you. Even first, of course, when you listen to somebody, then you listen just with alert stillness. You listen, similar to what in nature. There's stillness when you perceive nature. A little bit more difficult when you look at another human and you're listening to him or her, because that stimulates much more of your mind than the tree or the sea or the sand or the sky. They don't stimulate the mind that much. Well, to some people they do too, but another human being stimulates the mind much more. So it's more of a challenge to stay present there, but it's a beautiful challenge. So stay a little bit still and spacious inside while you listen. And then even while you talk, don't get totally drawn into the mind stream. And this is a way of speaking and have at the same time feeling a stillness in between the words, or after you have said what you had to say. You don't need to go on and on and on. You said what you had to say and you go back into stillness. You make a statement and you go back into stillness, alert presence, and the other person might say something. So there's always some spaciousness in you where you're not a person, where you are presence. If you're only a person, which is totally mind identified, then interactions are not that satisfying with other humans, and very quickly you find something that's wrong with them, more likely than finding something that's right with them. Unless there's somebody who really thinks, oh, this person, I must have this person as my partner, definitely he or she is going to make me happy, complete me. fulfill me for the rest of my life. And then the mind will suddenly misperceive that. But usually it's very quickly conflict comes in, and not very satisfying. Complete lack of spaciousness is terrible.